Southern Illinois. The night of the 9th of September, 1991. In the darkness of a coal pit near the little town of Cutler, something is burning that should not be able to burn. Deep in the lower works of the largest digging machine human beings have ever built. A machine so much a part of this county that people navigate by it. Word spreads the way bad news does in mining country. Phone to phone, porch to porch, and by the time the sun comes up, the fire crews have done everything that can be done, and the men gathering quietly at the pit edge are looking at the end of an era. 21 stories of scorched steel standing dead and smoking in the last cut it ever made. To understand what was lost that night, there is one number and one paradox, and this whole video lies between them. The number is 28 million pounds. 14,000 tons of machine, double the weight of the next largest shovel on Earth. So heavy that among everything humanity has ever set moving across dry land, only a handful of later giants, cable-fed themselves, would ever weigh more. The paradox is this: that machine with 30,000 horsepower coursing through its body could not move one single inch by itself. It had no engine, not one. No diesel, no turbine, not so much as a lawnmower motor it could call its own. Every ounce of its impossible strength arrived through a cable, borrowed electricity on a 14,000-volt cord, and when the giant walked, men walked beside it, tending that cord like grooms leading a horse the size of a courthouse. Regular viewers of this channel have already met the company that built it in our video about NASA's crawler transporters, the machines that carry moon rockets to the pad. At the end of that video, this channel made a promise that the same company, in the same year, built something even that story could not contain. This is it. One creation moved rockets at 1 mile an hour and became immortal. The other ate the Earth itself at a quarter of that speed and died young. This is the story of the Marion 6360, the shovel the miners named the Captain, the machine so big it could not power itself, and of the September night when the biggest of them all died in its own pit. The story begins in 1965 in Marion, Ohio, at the Marion Puauer Shovel Company, a firm in the middle of the single greatest year any heavy equipment maker has ever had, before or since, and it is worth pausing on how unlikely that sentence is for a company from a small Ohio town that had been building shovels since the age of the Panama Canal. That year, Marion delivered the 2 crawler transporters to NASA, the machines that would carry every Saturn V and every space shuttle to the launch pad for the next 60 years, machines this channel has already covered in full. Any other company would have called that a century's crowning achievement and gone home. Marion, in that very same year, completed something else, something that outweighed both crawlers combined more than 4 times over: a stripping shovel for the coal fields of southern Illinois. In one calendar year, one Ohio company built the machine that carried humanity toward the moon and the heaviest machine that ever crawled the earth. And it is genuinely unclear which was the harder job. The customer for the second machine was the Southwestern Illinois Coal Corporation, and the price was $25 million. For a sense of what that bought, in 1965, Caesar's Palace opened in Las Vegas that same year, at that same price. One buyer got a casino empire. The other got the largest mobile land machine in the history of the world, and, as things turned out, the better story. It could not be built in a factory and delivered, because nothing on Earth could deliver it. No road, no rail car, no barge could carry the finished thing. Instead, it arrived in southern Illinois by rail, in pieces, trainload after trainload of numbered steel rolling into Perry County, and was erected in the open field beside the mine the way a skyscraper is raised. Cranes and crews and drawings, 150,000 man-hours of assembly before it took its first bite of Illinois. Farmers watched a building assemble itself out of boxcars. The mine it rose beside was called the Captain Mine, near the little towns of Percy and Cutler, and so the machine received, without ceremony, the only name that was ever going to fit it: the Captain. The scale of the finished machine breaks the part of the brain that judges size, so the numbers need company. 28 million pounds with ballast aboard, 14,000 tons, and some estimates ran higher still. For calibration, the entire crawler transporter that carries a space shuttle weighs 6 million pounds. The captain weighed almost 5 of those, 319 feet long, longer than a football field, an undercarriage 88 feet wide, wider than an 8-lane highway, 21 stories tall, the height of a serious downtown office building, except this building crossed the ground and picked things up. Its boom alone ran 215 feet, reaching more than 200 feet into the Illinois sky, visible for miles across the flat farm country, and it could dump its load 153 feet up, high enough to top a 12-story spoil pile without straining. At the end of that boom swung the largest dipper ever hung on any machine before or since, 180 cubic yards, a bucket with the internal volume of a comfortable house. The mouth of it measured 18.5 feet wide by 16 feet high, an opening a loaded highway truck could drive straight into with room to spare, and it was the only shovel dipper ever built with 2 doors instead of 1, because a single door big enough for that mouth could not survive the slamming, thousands of times a day, for decades. Even the details of this machine needed details. Each bite lifted 270 tons of rock and earth, 300 in heavy digging, which means this machine could swallow a 2-story house, foundation and all, in a single pass, swing away, spill it onto the growing hills of its own making, and come back for the neighbor's house. All day, all night, without a pause for breath it did not need, because nothing aboard breathed. And here is the detail that makes working men smile. The captain stood so tall on its crawlers that there was 16 feet of clear air beneath its lower works, and the mine ran its haul trucks and loaders straight underneath the operating machine, in safety, while 270 tons at a time swung overhead. Traffic, under the shovel, as a matter of routine. Now the paradox at the heart of this video, the one in the title, because everything about the captain's power, every last horsepower of it, was borrowed. There was no engine aboard, none. No diesel, no turbine, no fuel tank, nothing anywhere in that 21-story body that burned fuel or made power of its own. A machine of 30,000 horsepower carried 0 horsepower it could call its own, the strongest beggar in the history of machinery. Instead, the captain lived its entire life on the end of a trailing cable carrying 14,000 volts of alternating current, mine power, utility power, fed to 4 great motor generator sets in its belly that converted the incoming current to drive 20 main motors. 8 hoist motors of 1,000 horsepower each, the largest electric motors ever installed in any excavator on Earth, hauling the loaded dipper skyward through 4 wire ropes each 3.5 inches thick, cables that could each lift a locomotive. 8 swing motors of 625 horsepower apiece, slewing 14,000 tons of superstructure like a battleship turret. 5,000 horsepower devoted to nothing but turning around, more turning power alone than most entire machines on this channel have possessed in total. 2,000 more horsepower crowding the dipper forward into the bank, forcing steel teeth through rock. In total, more than 22 megawatts of demand, the electrical appetite of an entire town, arriving down one cord and spent, every watt of it, on moving Illinois out of the way of its own coal. Why build it helpless? Because helplessness was the price of the power. No engine that could physically fit aboard could feed an appetite like this, and no fuel tank could keep up with it. Diesel power at this scale would have meant a tanker truck in permanent attendance and a mechanical plant of absurd complexity. Electricity, by contrast, scales beautifully, as long as somebody else generates it. A machine drawing town-sized power for decades makes sense only when the mine itself becomes the power plant and the machine becomes, in effect, the world's largest appliance. So the trade was made deliberately, and both halves were honored in full. Infinite endurance, 0 independence. The captain could dig around the clock for 26 years without ever once stopping for fuel, and it could never in its life take one step beyond the reach of its cable. Strength and captivity, welded into the same design, which regular viewers will recognize as this channel's favorite kind of story. And the engineers dignified that leash with real elegance. The captain carried 2 cable reels, mounted on opposite sides of the machine, so that when it finished working one end of a pit, it did not have to turn its 14,000 tons around. It simply dropped one cord, picked up the other, and walked back the way it came, digging in reverse. It rode on 8 crawler tracks arranged in 4 pairs at its corners, each track 45 feet long and 10 feet wide, wearing 42 shoes apiece at 3.5 tons per single shoe, more than 1,000 tons of footwear before counting anything the shoes carried. Its full walking speed was 1/4 of 1 mile per hour, a pace a toddler beats without trying. When the captain moved, men moved with it, shepherding the great cable clear of its own tracks, and the whole procession advanced across the coal field at the pace of a slow funeral, which, given enough decades, every machine's walk turns out to be. The work it did with all that borrowed power was a kind of choreography no other machine ever performed. The captain was designed, uniquely, to strip 2 seams of coal at once, a job description written for exactly 1 machine on exactly 1 coal field. It walked directly on the lower seam, its 8 crawlers rolling on the very coal it was uncovering, digging the overburden ahead of itself, while at its side, running along nearly level with the operator's cab, lay the upper seam, and it stripped that one too, in the same sweeping passes. Then, with both seams laid bare and the coal hauled off to the tipple, it stepped sideways and dug the bench of the upper level down to its own track level, casting the spoil neatly into the pit it had just finished emptying, so the hole it made and the hole it filled were always the same hole, 1 pass apart. Ahead of itself, always, 2 layers of buried sunlight waiting. Behind itself, always, a landscape completely rearranged. A machine playing a game of patience with a county-sized board. It did this around the clock, 7 days a week, holidays included, and the mine shipped roughly 150 railroad carloads of coal every single day on the strength of it, coal that lit cities and fired boilers across the middle of the country. Year in, year out, through the entire administrations of 6 presidents, from Lyndon Johnson to the first George Bush, the captain worked, and by the end the earth it had moved was beyond easy counting, with estimates reaching toward 1 billion cubic yards, a volume that stops meaning anything and simply becomes geology. The men of the mine, which changed hands to Arch Mineral in 1969, called the machine the pride and joy of the operation, and the operators who ran it from that high cab praised it afterward the way this channel's audience praises old iron, plainly and without qualification. In the flat country of southern Illinois, it stood taller than anything for miles in any direction, a building that changed its address a 1/4 mile at a time, and for 26 years it was simply part of the landscape, part of the county, part of growing up there. Families drove out just to watch it work. Kids measured their childhoods against it. Machines this big stop being equipment and become geography, and geography is not supposed to burn. Then came the night of the 9th of September, 1991. Fire broke out in the machine's lower works, down among the hydraulics and the motors, in the small hours when the fewest eyes were on it, and fire found a machine like this generous. Decades of oil film, miles of cable insulation, rooms full of things that burn once something starts them. The exact cause was never conclusively confirmed, then or ever, and the 2 leading theories both sound painfully, almost insultingly small against what they killed. One held that oily rags in the hydraulic room caught sparks thrown from an electric motor. The other, that a leaking hydraulic hose had misted fine oil into the air of a closed room until a spark found the cloud. A rag, a hose, 14,000 tons. Either way, by the time the flames were finally beaten down, the electrical and hydraulic heart of the largest shovel ever built was gone, and the steel above it stood intact and useless, a body that had outlived its organs. The engineers came in the days that followed, from Arch and from Marion itself, the company surveying its own greatest creation, and together they did the cold arithmetic that ends machines. A repair estimate came back at $7 million, and on another mine, in another year, it might even have been paid. Except that a replacement already existed, a big Marion 5900 shovel sitting idle nearby, smaller but ready, and it was digging the captain's pit within weeks. Against a working substitute, the giant could not be saved by sentiment, because sentiment has never once appeared on a mining ledger. The decision was made, the salvage contract was let to United Salvage of Illinois, and through 1992, the Captain was cut apart by torches exactly where it stood. Its steel hauled away truckload by truckload, scrapped in the last pit it ever dug, which is either the saddest ending in this channel's entire catalog or the most fitting one, and the comment section can fight about that below. There is a postscript to the fire that stings a little more with every year. The machine was insured through Lloyd's of London, and the settlement paid out at $35 million, $10 million more than the Captain had cost to build brand new. On paper, the ledger closed in profit. Nobody at that mine ever mistook the paper for the machine. And the records the Captain held, it never surrendered. It was the largest mechanical shovel ever built on the day it was commissioned in October of 1965. It was still the largest ever built on the night it burned 26 years later, and in the decades since, no shovel anywhere on Earth has approached it. And none ever will. Its operating weight was fully double that of the next largest stripper ever to work. And among all land-going machines of every kind in human history, only certain later bucket wheel excavators, cable-fed giants themselves, tethered exactly as the Captain was tethered, would ever weigh more. The last stripping shovel left running anywhere in America, years afterward, was half the Captain's size, and when that one finally stopped, the entire species was extinct. And no successor was ever attempted, for reasons that are pure economics rather than lost nerve. Super strippers were never catalog products. Each one was designed and ordered against one specific mine's planned output for decades ahead. A marriage of machine and coalfield signed before the first bolt was forged. And once the surface mining era's arithmetic shifted toward drag lines, toward different coal, toward different rules, no coalfield on Earth would ever again justify the wedding. Which leaves the Captain in the rarest category a machine can occupy. It was not the first of a line that others improved upon. It was the line, entire, beginning, peak, and end in one hull of steel, and everything after it has been smaller. The strangest part of the story is what the land did next. The Captain Mine eventually gave 16,000 acres back, donated to the state of Illinois, and the law of reclamation required the torn ground to be healed, regraded, and replanted. Here is the twist. Nobody driving past those pits in the 70s would have believed. Regraded strip land, it turns out, grows back as something remarkably close to the open prairie that covered the Midwest before the row crops erased it. Grassland of a kind modern Illinois barely has anywhere else. So bobwhite quail moved in, and meadowlarks, and white-tailed deer. Whole populations settling onto rolling grass that exists in its present shape because a 14,000-ton machine once needed somewhere to put 1 billion yards of earth. The machine that was built to take everything ended up, entirely by accident, handing the land back wilder than the farms around it, and the county the Captain spent its life consuming is now, in places, the best habitat for miles. Nothing physical remains of the Captain itself, and that absence is its own small tragedy. The crawler transporters, its stablemates, still work at Kennedy and will be preserved forever. The big boy from our last video sat in a park for 50 years and got resurrected. The Captain got torches. No museum received a piece worth keeping. No 180-yard dipper stands in a roadside park for kids to climb. It exists now in photographs, in a few reels of film, in the memories of Southern Illinois mining families, and in the record books it still owns outright and permanently, which is a thin afterlife for the largest machine that ever moved across the face of the earth, and precisely why this video exists. This video keeps a promise. In our crawler transporter video, we told you Marion built something in 1965 that made even NASA's machines look small, and the comment section asked for it by name. Here it is. And now the debate belongs to all of you. Same company, same year, 2 immortal machines. The crawler that carried the moon rockets still works today, 60 years on. The captain outweighed it, outpowered it, outdug everything in history, and died in a night. Which one is Marion's true masterpiece? Choose and defend it below. And the stories, because this video is unfinished without them. If you grew up in Perry County or anywhere in the southern Illinois coal country, if your family worked the Captain Mine across those 26 years, if you rode past that machine on the highway as a kid with your face against the glass, if you drove a haul truck underneath it and felt 270 tons pass over your roof, or if you stood at the fence in September of 1991 and watched the smoke come up out of the pit, this comment section was built for you, and this channel's audience wants every detail. The machine never got a proper farewell. It went from landmark to scrap without a ceremony. Its people can give it one here. If you are watching this in its first week, there is a hype button under this video. Tapping it costs you nothing, and it genuinely helps a small channel like this one get found. And then tap subscribe, because next time we trade the biggest machine in the world for the winningest engine in America, the engine that won the Indy 500 27 times, and here at the Loud Era, the old iron always has one more story left to tell.